lady I've known for quite a long time in the field of performing art and music education. She's a lecturer, a music lecturer at Maseno University, handling teaching or method of teaching in the School of Education and also in the School of Art and Social Sciences. She's a seasoned adjudicator, facilitator, composer, mentor, performer, and a member of the executive committee of Kenya Music Festival. She's published in peer-reviewed journals of music and education. I present to you Dr. Jacqueline Zinale Bulinda Lugaliki. Makofi kwa daktari anapokuja kutufundisha on the topic Dynamics in Ensemble Performance, Choirs, Bands and Instrumental Groups. Daktari, ongea na watu wako, akiwemo chairman wetu na executive secretary. Makofi anapokuja tafadhali. Wakenya wanajulikana kwa kushangilia. Usiposhangilia hapa tutakushangilia huko. Makofi tafadhali kwa daktari. The way you begin this day will determine how you end it.
Thank you very much, Shuja. I'll ride on the already established protocol and say good morning to you. Good morning once more. I request Alan Chahasi to kindly come over and my teams of resource persons kindly come closer. We don't have a lot of time. Now, I am presenting on dynamics in ensemble performance. I will take choirs, bands, and instrumental groups to be my spaces where I'll draw examples and samples for exemplification of my presentation. First and foremost, I'll begin by giving a background to this presentation, and my background is two-pronged. One of them will speak into what I am going to look at as the innovations and changes that have taken place in instrumental performances and vocal music or choral music performances. And the second one will be the story of the Kenya Music Festival with what happens with regard to training and adjudication of ensemble performances. Now, where is the conundrum? The first problem with the topic, or the words in my topic, are the concepts that we use. The first of the concepts is the word ensemble. There are very many people who pronounce it variously, and the worst that I've ever heard is somebody who said ensemble. So people, can we try and say ensemble? Or that is a word that came from French, and therefore it has that kind of pronunciation. In the Kenya Music Festival, if you can look at our syllabus today, a big percentage of the music, of the pieces here are ensemble in nature. Any combinations that begin from two performers and so on tells us that that is an ensemble. We have both vocal and instrumental ensembles. So about 90% of our music is in ensemble format. And that is what I'm talking about. It means that this is important to us. It is a concept that we need to be able to understand, all of us. And then now, the story of the festival is, as much as we have this as a big amount of music here, the problem is that we have issues that have emanated from things to do with adjudication and training of these ensembles. One of the issues is of the issues is uncoordinated performances, and that I'll speak to it. Another issue is inappropriate choice of instruments, even after having been given instructions on which instruments form ensembles. And then, even singers, the singership does not reflect ensemble performance. There is also lack of historical knowledge on instruments and choral ensembles. If you do not have the historical knowledge of these instruments, then it's not possible for you to be able to speak about them well and present matters regarding it with regard to performance and adjudication. And then we talk about the language of the instruments. In Africa, our instruments speak. Each African instrument has an idiom that it represents. And that is why we have Alan here today with a set of drums that we will look at so as we speak about the language of instruments. And then we have the lack of proper research, or just the lack of research on African instruments, especially those outside Africa. We do not research on our own instruments, and then the worst thing that happens is we don't research on instruments outside Africa. We are told that we are performing on African instruments, yet we only dwell on Kenyan instruments. That is something that we need to look into. And therefore, that brings us to the reason why we are carrying out the discourse today on ensemble performance. One of the reasons is so that we acquire and understand concepts in ensemble performance. The second of the objectives is so as to better our understanding of ensembles and ensemble performances. And the third is to improve methods of adjudicating choral, band, and instrumental ensembles. So what is an ensemble? Normally, you will not realize that this is such a confusing term. An ensemble is a group of musicians, so that when you find three people playing a sukuti, they don't perhaps have to be having the sukuti. Maybe you know them as players of sukuti. They sit in there as an ensemble. So it is a group of musicians who perform together. Whether they're performing or not, they are an ensemble. And then the second thing is that it is a set of instruments, a group of instruments. That is an ensemble. That speaks to the fact that these perform coordinated and harmonized parts in order to achieve the collective music expression, which is a very big factor in ensemble performance. From the definition of the word ensemble, then I can tell you who members of an ensemble are. Ensemble membership refers to instruments. Ensemble membership refers to people. So when you talk about your writing as an adjudicator and you're writing about members of an ensemble, you can talk about the members of this ensemble who are well dressed. So you're talking about people. Members of the ensemble, or you can talk about them as the instruments in there. And then ensemble performance refers to the staged or recorded musical presentations involving two or more musicians performing together. So then, there is one instrument called a piano. And then there's a duet on that piano. And the instrument is one, okay? Because I said at least two instruments. Is that an ensemble or not? Is it an ensemble? But normally we have a choral ensemble. The piece of music is one when we perform in a choir, isn't it? When the piece of music is one, but the performers are many, is that not an ensemble? My argument today is to argue that even that piano duet is an ensemble. If you don't agree with me, I do not know. I can see Ludwig, what you say. We will talk about this a little later. I'm talking about the duet and it either being an ensemble or not. If you refute that, let's see. And then we have the word dynamics. When I spoke to the technical chair, I just asked him exactly what do you mean. He sent me thinking. He left me alone and told me, just think about it and let's see. When I went back to him, he told me your definitions are okay. One thing that I told him that I wanted to use as a definition in here is the word dynamics that refers to the degree of loudness or softness of a piece of music. When coordinating ensembles, that is one of the expression elements that we use. So that is one of the definitions I've used to refer to that. The other definition that comes about is dynamics as the macro and micro factors of a performance that are normally dealt with or coordinated, so that the activity is either coordinated or not coordinated. So dynamics are changes or cares that you take or activities that you take during ensemble performance. And then dynamics refer to evolutions. Just a few minutes ago, Mr. Etienne said that the world is changing. And of course, it is true the world is changing. Those are the dynamics I'm also going to talk about at introduction. I would have actually dwelt on them, but that will not be workshop, because we are told by Professor here that it needs to be workshop. So those are the shifts in artistic conventions, such as instrumental features, musical features, cultural features, historical features, environmental features. For example, if you're told, do not cut trees, and therefore if you don't cut trees, you will not be able to make an instrument that has a wooden resonator. Those are evolutions that take place. Now, I have some theoretical underpinnings for this study of mine. Here, I will use the theory of complex systems, the complex systems theory. And this theory explains 3 levels of understanding of music in an ensemble. And exactly that is what we will do when we will look at the approach to adjudication of ensembles. We are going to use the complex systems theory. The complex systems theory posits that an ensemble functions as a complex interconnected system where an individual, it's an interconnected system where we have an individual within an ensemble, and then the individual works with others within an ensemble, and then there are outer factors around that ensemble that we need to know. Now, the individual components of the musician. What should you be in an ensemble? Should you be a team player or not a team player? You can actually fail to be a team player when you decide to sing very loudly when the others are singing moderately softly. Or you decide to dance extra vigorously when the rest are just dancing moderately. And when the others have a moderate tone and you want to show them how you can do coloratura. And then we have now interrelations between you and the other members of the ensemble. That needs to be known. How do you operate so that you operate as a unit? And then thirdly, is the meso level. The meso level is where we need to understand the ensemble from the perspective of other happenings, either musical or non-musical, that make dynamics or changes to happen within ensemble performances. And here is my conceptual framework. The very center of that tier is where we have the macro level, micro level, the functioning of the individual. And then we have the macro level, the interactions between the individual and other individuals of the ensemble. And then we have the meso level, which is the outer level that speaks to the evolution factors and other factors within the ensemble. Inquiry into instrumental and vocal expressions in Africa is a very multifaceted endeavor. Why? Because it looks at music as a historical fact. Not just music, but ensemble music as a historical fact. It has actually grown with time. It looks at it as a technological fact. Why? Because the technology of making these musical instruments and the technology of producing the sound is also a fact with regard to dynamics of or growth of this music. And then it is an economic fact. That I'll begin with it too, because it is a big factor in how our colonizers looked at our ensembles. And then third, it is a phonofact. Phonofact means it is just a sound fact. Now, where do we begin? Looking at the colonization issue from a global perspective and capitalist perspective, instruments were viewed as Africa's material resources, not as anything that can produce sound, not as anything that is useful. And that made the instruments be easy to export, the instruments be easy to even steal. We were told that our instruments were stolen and taken to museums elsewhere. Yes, and at that point, they stopped having the sound part of them. So the instrument, the visual aspect was removed or divorced from the sound aspect. For that matter then, we know that our instruments speak a given language. an Isukuti drum will speak a language that is understood by the Luya people. The Ohangla drum will speak a language that is understood by the Luo. And if that particular language and the sound system is removed, then that is a beginning and a historical fact that we need to know. Quite negative, but a little bit positive, because it tells us where to begin as we adjudicate our music. We normally encounter the visual first. It is those instruments that we find on stage first. And then there was a preference of instruments over voice, because these instruments were easier to harness and take them elsewhere for storage and to be able to create narratives around and about African cultures. And one of the narratives that were created was that ensemble drumming was the most fundamental, and it is the only thing that Africans work through. That is not a lie anyway, because we have cultures, like in the Nigerian cultures, we have ensemble drumming that goes on, but it goes on alongside other performances like dancing. When the two are not divorced, the Nigerians don't refer to it as a drum ensemble, but instead they refer to it as a dance drumming, so that we're able to see how Africans appreciated their work. Then there is a factor to it on complexity of rhythms. Now this reads into my micro level, where we look at the rhythmic patterns that are given as a phenomenon in ensemble playing. It was not only rhythm that was indicated with our ensemble playing. There is much more. There is pitch, there is many more things that I'm going to talk about. And then the drum was also regarded the African musical instrument par excellence and a symbol of Black Africa. It is not only the drum. I think the drum was over-glorified as a narrative that suited the difference makers among our colonizers. Now, the truth is, according to Agao, he says, making music together, which I call participatory music making, which now is called ensemble, is a tradition that is deeply rooted in many African cultures, and it is a means of reinforcing social bonds and transmitting cultural values across generations. That is quite a positive thing, because yesterday, we were spoken to about the values. Both vocal and instrumental music were performed involving instruments, various instruments and styles that emphasized collaborative musicking. For example, if I sang Mwana wa Mberi bayaye, bayaye wo, Mwana wa Mberi bayaye, bayaye wo, Mwana wa Mberi beshekoero. What has happened? That is a call and response. When I called, you responded. Such a form of musicking brings in a form of community. The song is made of very short phrases, Mwana wa Mberi bayaye and Mwana wa Mberi, just that being repeated many times. That form of singing brings in the sense of community. You sing a song that the community members can be able to identify with and catch very fast, thereby demonstrating the versatility, richness, and importance of African traditions in expressing diverse cultural meanings and identities. Apart from the rhythms, apart from the instruments, we also have cultural attachments that are given to these instruments. So the African ensemble that is now contemporary, in the contemporary setting, reads or is a result of modernity. It is a result of fusion. It is a result of Africanization, the need to Africanize the instruments. It is also a result of technologization, globalization, I know you know those words, okay? And many more. So what is the result? The result is a new understanding where we have three schools of thought. The first school of thought will regard African music, African instruments as authentic. The second school of thought will regard African music as quasi-authentic. And then the third school of thought will look at it as not authentic at all. So what do we want to do as adjudicators? This is a dynamic that we need to speak to very clearly. Do not sit there and think what you know and what you believe in as a school of thought is the only working school of thought. All these are available to us our thinking, and our studying of the African instruments and ensembles that are on stage, and the African music that is on stage. First, what I'll request Alan to kindly come over. I'll also request, apart from Alan, I'll also request the team singing, the small choir singing Kokoliko to also come over. As I finish up about these evolutions, I want you to meet this singer who has given Ohangla a modern beat. We will not play it, but this is on news. He actually plays the Ohangla beat on that piano. I will not play it, but I'll go forth to talk about music and music softwares. What has happened with the music among music softwares? The music softwares have taken up ensemble performances, and that makes it a little different. Okay, let's have Alan Henry. Alan comes with a set of drums. He has the first drum, the Isukuti. The Isukuti drums. Apart from the Isukuti drums, we also have the Ohangla drums. Now the Isukuti drums are played in a set of 3. On the micro level, that is where we begin. We are going to look at the spectacle, what we see. What are we seeing on stage? What are these? This is the Isukuti ensemble, isn't it? 3 drums. It was a set of 3 drums. And then these drums play, the sound world of these instruments is known to us, and that is what we'll speak of as the language of the Isukuti drums. Mr. Wekesa, kindly be ready. So when these drums are played, when they will be tuned properly, don't worry, when they are played, they take a familial or a family setup kind of format. We call this Isukuti Mwana. It is normally more high-pitched than you're hearing. And then the next one is called Isukuti Ihasi. Ihasi means the woman or the wife. And then the third one is Lume, Isukuti Isaza. Can we get someone to come over kindly? We thought we were 3, but we are just 2 Alan. All right, thank you. So these are now, once you're done with the visual, you have seen the Isukuti, you write the comment and write very fast. Do you think this ensemble is maybe not. There are other instruments that are not here. Kengele. And then, of course, there are other factors we need to talk about. The Isukuti Mwana goes this way. Now, we want to see the children's language of the music language of Isukuti, which is this. The Isukuti Mwana go. You can hear that. You have heard the man. Now, thank you. You've heard that overlay of the head. I will easily go ahead and perform Mukangana. Yes. Now, I knew what would happen. Madam Yes would easily dance. And that is my argument today. Why do you leave the meso factors of an ensemble out? Are you Africans? Are you still Africans? Mr. Wekesa and Sukuti, kindly come over. Yes. Please tell people something. Okay. There you go. Feel free people. Thank you. You are reading into my Now, the Sukuti drums are a type of ensemble that you'll definitely find in the Apart from the fact that the Sukuti drums are here, my argument today is, in the African setting, there are other elements outside these instruments that we have seen that compound and form these. On the societal level, there is a way in which we appreciated our music. We used music to appreciate our own music. This is how it goes. We also defined, I said we start from the visual. This is what you can see. Check if the ensemble is complete. Number 2, listen into the sound system of this ensemble. And number 3, go into society and find out what does the society, that is at my meso level, what does the society think? Our society spoke, our society sang about these instruments. This is what they said. Sukuti ya huma, sukuti ya huma hango, sukuti ya huma, sukuti ya huma hango, sukuti ya huma, sukuti ya huma hango, sukuti ya huma, sukuti ya huma hango. Isukuti ila kulanga ko, he ila kulanga, isukuti ila kulanga ko, he ila kulanga. What does it mean? What are they saying? They are saying the Sukuti is groaning, and especially referring to this Sukuti, Yauma, this particular one. Isukuti ilakulanga, inawika. That is how we appreciate. We say things about our instruments. I think those are things that are about our ensemble and with our ensemble. And then we go on and say, Mulele is an instrument among the Luo. We normally say, now, you know Sukuti drummers don't know conducting. So then, at the other level, we are commenting and saying what is happening here. Iyo sauti imeinama. That is what we mean. Imeinama. To say it has actually landed. And then, of course, there are people who think very wrongly here. Then we start saying, Mama, hame bushindu, Mama, hame bushindu, Mama, hame bushindu. Now, it doesn't mean what you think. It means it comes with reward. Okay? You remember I was given money here? That is what it means. Give me something. Because that is the form of appreciation that comes with Isukuti drumming. Professor Rose Ongati, kindly find a microphone. What do you say of the bull drums? What do you say of the Ohangla drums?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jackie. I've just heard you say that Sikuti Yauma, which means the Sikuti is groaning. In bull, or bull, we don't say bull, bull. I hear Adjudicators saying bull. Bull means to roast. But in bull kind of performance, we say bull chur. To means bull it's groaning. Yes. And then we also say bull oye yuak. The drum has agreed, I'm saying literal translation, the drum has agreed to sound. Because there are times that the drum would refuse to sound. Yes. But bull can also yuak in terms of bull is crying. It depends on how you beat it. If you beat it, it will cry. But if you play it, it will sound.
Thank you very much, bro. Now, kindly come over. No, I am here to the next thing that we need to find content in and with dynamics in is the type of ensembles that we have. I have been told to look at bands, I've been told to look at choral music, and at the same time, look at instrumental music. I tried very much to find a band, but you know what happened? I did not have money. I spent all the money that was given here and I couldn't manage. Kindly team, come over. It is okay, mommy. Now, we have, just stay there. We have different types of instruments. They are known in terms of Size, like these are 3, they are few, and therefore they are referred to as a chamber ensemble. And then when there are many, like what we have for a symphony, that's a concert or an orchestral setting or an orchestral ensemble. What is this, people? What is this? An ensemble, okay? And what is this? The drums are also an ensemble. And these are members of the ensemble, these are also members of the ensemble. Now with the song that you want to sing, we will just listen to the beginning only to start with. Look, when an ensemble has the same type of instruments, we call it a consort. For example, the recorders are a consort. That is the recorder consort. We have the sopranino, which is the smallest. We have the soprano or treble recorder, or descant recorder. We have the treble recorder that follows. And then we have the tenor recorder and bass recorder. That is a consort, a string consort, where we have the instruments of the string quartet. We need to be able to, I did not want to have issues with people when I carry their photographs along. And then that is a drum consort. It's not Kenyan. That sukuti is a drum consort. This is a choral consort. And then, apart from those consorts, we have others like the Adjudicators Ensemble of Uganda, and then the Marimba Ensemble that we will look at. Right now, we are not really going into the sound system much, but we will do so when we go on. That is a band that you can see there. Those are instruments of the band. I know you have come across guitars and drum set and many others. Before we look into the instruments themselves, let's hear Wapi Jogo. Please go on. Now look, we just said Sukuti Yauma, but now choral music is a type of ensemble. It came about beginning with folk music, and then we have art music brought in by the whites, where we started by singing hymns and all other vocal pieces of music. But now the evolution in this vocal ensemble is whereby we have characterization now. Number 2, we have African choral art music, whereby we are mixing African and Western elements, but the ensemble performative elements are the ones that we shall look at closely. Kindly move on. Thank you very much. You can see there's an evolution here. They have books they are reading from. It is now scored. Number 2, we could hear what is African about this, the language. When that language was sung, it's Luya. Why did the Sukuti drummers continue drumming? Because there is a replacement already. That is now a change that has happened. In addition to that, there is very gentle dancing, and what was that? Was that Shumba-like dancing? That is a fusion of many African cultures and also of Western and African aspects of performance. Now, I would like us to listen to the soloist one by one after the other. Thank you. You can see there's a difference, isn't it? But the moment they start performing together, Dr. Chokera will tell us what has happened, because there are things psychological that they take care of. The moment people are put together in an ensemble, there are things that get muted immediately. You may not be able to hear specifically what happens in a single singer's voice, but the moment they're together, there are things you will not notice. Did you notice anything at the beginning? Before I singled them out to sing one after the other? You did not. Choir, thank you very much. That was my choral ensemble. Now, Dr. Chopera, what is it that this team and any other members of ensemble that is psychological that they need to do so that that becomes a choral ensemble or an instrumental ensemble?
Thank you, Daktari. A few things. I think number one, just discipline of or discipline in an ensemble. And we are talking about oral awareness, being able to listen to one another. And for instance, we saw the example where the two soloists were asked to lead separately, and you could hear that they have different intonation. But so just awareness so that you know that if you're performing in an ensemble, there are aspects to do with intonation, there are aspects to do with blend, there are aspects to do with balance. Then presence of mind when you're performing, whether it is a choral ensemble, whether it is an instrumental ensemble. There is need for us to make sure that at all times we are there mentally, because if one of us is ahead of the other, if one of us misses the cue, then we have a few challenges. One or two other aspects, something to do with focused concentration, and this is sustained mental effort. I think even in our rubric or in our score guide, we've seen that word focused concentration. It's just sustained mental effort so that you're able to carry through your performance from point A to point B, or what is expected. Then non-verbal cues, particularly for entries. You have to know, listen, breathe together, watch the conductor, and so on and so forth.
Thank you very much, sir. That was quite a brilliant thought, or brilliant thoughts coming forth. Now, among our ensembles, we can see that we have an array of them that talk to the dynamics in ensemble performance. We need to know that we have the traditional instruments. We need to know that there are instruments that have been brought in, but they originated elsewhere, like the bira and the marimba did not originate in Kenya, but we know that they are ours. There are hourglass-shaped instruments, especially the drums, are not African, but we have actually appropriated them. And then there are those that there are newer instruments, newer because they were imported to Kenya about 200 years ago. And we have instruments such as the saxophone, we have one in our ensemble, and so on. The Kenyan Music Festival detests improvised instruments. Improvised meaning made from jerry cans and such like materials that we have. That's a directive from our festival. The classification of instruments is present. We need to be aware of that. The new dynamic about classification of instruments is that we are taking to what is existing, that we can classify the instruments as chordophones, membranophones, idiophones, and so on, like cat sax. And Eric von Bostel classified instruments. But Agao detests these, which I am not detesting myself, because we still refer to our instruments like that. But his new thinking is that we have to know those instruments by their African names. So kindly research so that we have those African names at our fingertips. The adjudicator is required to know the instruments, not only the families, but also by name, the African names. Don't refer to the string instruments, that string instrument that I saw. There was a joke a few years ago where there are people who would say the violin was always referred to as that baby guitar or a small guitar. So kindly know what instruments you have. Know the parts of the instruments. That's a nyatiti. It has a crossbar, tuning pegs, strings, arm, bridge, and resonator. That's a trumpet, an example of the parts that we have on the trumpet. I may not talk about them very, very deliberately. And then now, after knowing those, the visual, we go to the sound system that we have looked at briefly by Dr. Chokera, but we need to know what are these that are social or sociological. Tuning of instruments is what needs to be known. Now, we have instruments. The tuning of instruments is the process of adjusting musical instruments. Kindly, the mixed consort. A mixed consort, kindly be standing. Instruments can be out of tune or they go off pitch. When you hear them go off pitch, you don't say that the music is bad. Don't write that. Use the terms like out of pitch or off pitch. That needs to be. We also need to have knowledge on transposing instruments. At one point when I went somewhere, I don't want to say where it is, I had an adjudicator say, the music on the clef was, on the score was written in different keys. Try to write all music in the same key because of issues, ignorance of dynamics in. Those instruments that we have drums, a drum ensemble, a consort of drums. We have a consort of single stringed instruments. We have many instruments there. They are mixed so that we have the piano, Mira, kindly. I sought for an instrument, thanks to Madam Zalo, an instrument from Zimbabwe. The Southern African, yes. And then we have sets of drums there. Alan, kindly join with the Sukuti drums. We have also an instrument from Kisi. So you can see that's a collection of instruments that we managed to get. The band is going to sing, to try to sing the language of the instruments. I'll ask someone in the group to kindly adjudicate and sing. But for us, adjudicators, for us trainers, what can you see? That is my micro, the visual. What can you see? Can you see a mixture of instruments? Does it form a mixed consort? And are the instruments representative of two different cultures, African cultures and Western cultures, or not? That is a new dynamic in the history of instruments, and that is what the KMF goes by. But are they 8 players? Can you count? Don't worry for now, okay? Or you are asked to kindly move this side, but the guitarist and the pianist. Okay, sorry, Doctor. Please go ahead. Please face this side, please. Okay, go on. Listen to the tunes that they play and look at the communities that are represented. That is tuning of the instruments. UB40, reggae. And you can see the instrument taking the lead. The interlude, please mark it. Speaking an African language. Now afterwards, imitating the theme. Harmonies. You can hear the obokano, Mr. Nyancha. Please take keen note and tell us if there's any pitch there. There are new ways of responding and reacting to music. Instead of dancing, we immediately remove our phones and start recording. Look at the bull drum, the Ohangla drums. Improvisation, a lot of improvisation. That is what African ensemble playing is characterized by. As Dr. Chokera directed, they are listening to each other quite keenly. string instrument. At one point, it is ongenga. At another point, it is orutu. And another point, it becomes ishiriri. That is one of the ways of reducing that burn and following the numbers that are stipulated in our syllabus. Thank you very much, team. Dr. Ongati, I would like to make a request to you. What did you see as an adjudicator? Did you see an ensemble? Did you see, what was your visual? What was the micro? What is the macro? And finally, what do you say as a member of the festival? As she prepares, okay, fine. Thank you. Prof?
If your baby ambushes you, okay. At the micro level, I saw an ensemble of instruments of Western and African origin from different communities in Africa, because I could also see the Mira from Zimbabwe. Then two, in terms of tuning, as the instruments each were tuning, the tuning was okay. Three, there was an Ishiriri and there was an Orutu. Yeah, they were put together. They were speaking different languages, but they were not communicating. Number four, I saw an Ubokano. Okay, and Ubokano did not sound when the other instruments were sounding. One, it is an intimate instrument that does not have very big sound. So when all the other instruments were being played, the Ubokano was subdued. The tuning of the ensemble, you know, it was kind of not unified. And then we did not give roles. When the Western instruments are playing, you know, they have a language that they speak. When the African instruments are playing, they also have a language they speak. But when they are playing all of them, you find that Isikuti is now out of the idiom, because it is forced sometimes to play rhythms like the guitar, or sometimes like another Western instrument. So that communication was actually kind of punctured when all of them were performing.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Please clap for my mom. Look, and then we'll sit together with Mami, and I will be able to tell her the following. That Mami, when the Kisi instrument is playing, the Obokano has no melodic capacity, and therefore the saxophone picked it for it, but we managed to have it present. So the Kisi presence was available. The only thing that we would have done is to ask Dr. Mutuku to avail a microphone to them, so that he makes the balance among the sounds of the instruments. As adjudicators, we need to, and trainers as well, as we prepare our ensembles, we need to understand the capabilities of instruments, their melodic capabilities, their harmonic capabilities, the percussive capabilities, what roles they play, do they double, do they harmonize or otherwise, and what are the registers they indulge in that performance. Number two, we need to know arrangements on stage. The one that you can see on my presentation is one that is referred to as the tiered risers. Tiered risers is where you put performers on different tiers so that they are able to focus and see the conductor effectively. And then you can see as an arc or a semicircle by that ensemble. They're in a semicircle to be able to see the conductor. We have those as arrangements for choral music. We need to be aware that now they are varied. We also need to understand these as the stage arrangement for the classical orchestra. Of course, there are many other arrangements. So we have the tiered risers, we have sectional groupings, we have gender arrangement, and the newness in gender arrangement is there are people, male, who sing treble voices, and there are women, especially at some age, when they get advanced, their voices get more heavier, they sing male voices. You do not go and detest or disrespect their performances and tell them that they will not. Kindly understand that. Distance of singers is often instructed to about 18 inches from one another. Understand that. Know what you put on the foreground. The solo is stood ahead and the other performers were behind. In an orchestral performance that has voices or a choir, the choir stands behind the orchestra. And then we need to, as Dr. Chokera says, observe a unified expressiveness, have communication among the performers, because you need to understand the conductor's cues and even cues from each other. We need to balance sound. As Professor says, the nyatiti was not being heard, and not nyatiti but the obokano, and therefore we need that done. We need to maintain rhythm and tempo, and that's a very viable factor in the ensemble performances. We need to understand roles and responsibilities of people. In a performance, we have the conductor, we have section leaders that we normally call facilitators, and then we have the supporting musicians. Give them their roles as is expected. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, I want to end there to tell you that at my micro level, that is what you find first. See the ensemble, that is the visual. Number two, understand the sound world of the ensemble. And number three, understand the origins and other dynamics of the ensemble. My appreciation goes to my teaching aides, who are the members of the different ensembles, goes to the adjudicator professor, and it also goes to Dr. Chokera. Thank you so much, the executive team, for leading people in serious dancing to my ensemble music. Thank you and God bless you.
Wow, wow, wow. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you agree with me that this topic has been well handled, raise up your hand and clap for Daktari. I strongly believe that Daktari Jackie Bulinda has shown attributes of an excellent presenter this morning. Confidence, authentic, charismatic, with proper communication skills, storytelling, and has shown the proper knowledge of the subject matter. I am entertained, I'm educated. Asante Daktari. One or two questions, if there is any, before we usher in the next presenter. One and two, when you close.
Thank you, Doctor. I'm blessed. Allow me to understand one point. I want to go home when I'm a happy person. When the prof really gave her adjudication comment on the speaking of indigenous instrument language to that community of origin, in prominence given from that ethnicity, it is not a must that the instrument is the one to speak. The role can be given and spoken so long as it is in the idiom of that community we expect to represented. That is the clarity I really need to get.
Thank you. Next, then Dr. will handle both questions.
Thank you. On the side of the instruments, as Dr. has stated, sometimes we find in the education line that some will tell you, if you have included marimba in your ensemble, you should play the melody of the community, nor the Oroto should play the community of the Luo community. Now, is it a must that it should play that originality of the melody from where it comes from, or it can also be used to other melodies? Thank you.
Dr. please.
Listen to this. And watch as well. community. The moment an instrument representing a community is present, then the expectation, and especially the performance practice within the Kenyan Music Festival, is that there needs to be some insinuation or some content, sound, that will represent that community as well. We look at instrumental capabilities. I just spoke about the Obokana, which does not have melodic capacities or capabilities. But then, the saxophone, which brought the melody out clearly, a Kisi melody, spoke the presence of the Kisi community around. What the Obokano does back in its community is to play the accompaniment and provide rhythmic accompaniment. So that is what it did, and the melody was brought forth. Of course, you cannot tell your mother things. Your mother normally is very philosophical. There's a possibility there are things that are underlying that I need to work on. I, as a trainer of that team, I may have lacked a few things. Perhaps we need to speak about it. Although, one thing that we made present was the fact that the Obokano or the Kisi community will be represented both in the macro aspect, which is the visual, the spectacle, and the sound aspect. The second question, which is, should an ensemble, like what we have seen, that we can see is an ensemble of the marimba. That is a marimba concert. Should it play the melodies or music of the community from which it originates if it is a melodic instrument? It depends on the context. What does the Kenyan Music Festival want of us? That performance is outside the Kenyan Music Festival, and in that space, they are playing and the other one, a sample like from this, when we continue, we'll hear Vivaldi's Four Seasons, the spring. So we play anything depending on the capabilities of the instrument. So long as, that is actually one of the things that I'm talking about as dynamics, because the instruments can play their original melodies. The tuning of the litungu, the tuning of the rutu today allows the whole scale, and therefore an ability to play any music from any community. I hope we've understood that. Thank you very much.
Let's clap for Daktari. That was quite informative. Asante sana. With the permission of the program coordinator, we usher in the next presenter. Asante sana. Yes, it's my honor and privilege once more to continue with this role of ushering in presenters. After that very powerful presentation by Dr. Jackie Bulinda, we continue in that spirit. And now, I present to you a good friend of mine who is a lecturer and researcher in transcultural musicology at the Technical University of Kenya, popularly known as TUK, lakini kule nyumbani naita TUK. He is as well an accomplished adjudicator of Kenya Music Festival and other festivals, a facilitator, composer, arranger, a mentor, because I know the people you have mentored, performer, published in peer-reviewed journals, and above all, mtoto wa Kenya Music Festival. Let's put our hands together to welcome Dr. Mukasa Situma Wafula as he speaks to us on this topic, folk song versus folk dance, a comparative perspective on traditional Kenyan performance to enhance authenticity. Daktari, I'm ready to learn. Karibu.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm Jambo. I am privileged to come after Dr. Belinda because she has presented like half of what I should have presented. So I should only invite questions, then I sit down. Don't you think that would be very good? I don't know. But ladies and gentlemen, first of all, allow me to thank the Executive Committee for giving me this opportunity to come and share with you on this topic, folk song versus folk dance, a comparative perspective on traditional music performance to enhance what? Authenticity. My presentation is going to oscillate from theoretical perspectives into historical perspectives, into practical perspectives, and at the end of the day, maybe make suggestions or not make any suggestions at all. So you'll bear with me as I'll keep moving from one end of my presentation into the other. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm presenting on folk songs and folk dances. And this comes mainly from our African traditions. You'll agree with me that our African traditions are diverse. I am going to draw some examples. In case you realize that my examples might have come from maybe one part of this continent, please bear with me, because I would like to give examples that I can also defend. If today I decided to speak Doluo, I could easily insult people. If I decided to speak Maasai, I would say nothing at all. I hope you understand. I have 5 objectives for my presentation today. That at the end of my presentation, you'll be able to differentiate between a song, folk song, and a folk dance. That you'll be able to understand, the question of authenticity and the issues around it. And you'll be able to examine the relationship between music, movement, context, and community. And reflect on how staging and documentation and modernization affect our traditional performance. But at the end of the day, what you take home is, in your own context, are you able to apply whatever we have done today in your academic, in your artistic, and in your research context? Ladies and gentlemen, the term folk music has come a long way. All the way from the origins of the same word that is actually in German, that is folk, to refer to actually the people or a nation. To the 19th century, where they were trying to collect musics from the people in the rural areas, mainly the peasants. So that when you talk about folk, you are talking about music of the peasants, music of the people from the rural areas, music of the people who are not close to the dominant art music that is in what? In the theaters. Into the 20th century academic definitions of now looking at folk music in terms of how it can be applied into what? Into pop music, the likes of the indie music and the mid-20th century folk revival. But for the sake of this presentation, I would like to look at folk music from this perspective. That this is music that is tied to identity, music that is tied to heritage and a community. Traditional music, based whether rural or urban, it doesn't matter. But music that represents collective what? Memory. If today, for instance, I sang a song, Yesu mwana wa Nyasaye, Yesu mwana wa Nyasaye, those of you who know it have responded. Why? Because there is collective memory about what? About this music. Those of you who have responded, and those of you who did not respond because you wanted to listen to what others will sing, you are a part of the community of the people who are participating in that particular what? That particular music. And when that music is performed, if today I allowed people to stand up, they'll say, no Lord, Yesu mana wa nyasaye, no Lord. Why would they respond in that particular aspect? It's because there is a tradition on how that particular music ought to be what? To be performed. And the moment it is performed like that, and people are moving like that, others will be moving with their hands here, others will be moving in this direction. Somebody will say, this one here moves like he comes from the divine church. This one moves like he comes from the Israeli church. This one moves like he comes from the PAG. Why? It is because of the identity in how they have manifested themselves in their performance. And that is why I am thinking that that music that is tied to an identity, that music that has a heritage, where has it come from? How has it been brought down from one level to the other? How does the community around it appreciate it and the tradition behind it? Then that is what I am calling what? Folk music. I would like to play for you some musics. I'll request my technician to help me play some music. And when I play that music, I would like you people to help me understand something. Where do you think this music here could come from? Where would you think, why do you think this music comes from this particular environment? And what do you think makes it to be identified with that particular environment? Let's see the first clip. Thank you. So just only two people to respond to this. Who can tell us where this music could come from? If you know the community, please tell us which community it could be and why you think it is that particular community. Anyone who would like to try it? There is one person there? All right, good.
I'm Josephine from Kitui, and that community is the Maasai community.
Okay, give her a chance. Give her a chance. Go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, because the colors that they have worn are also some of the colors that they give a lot of prominence, and the dancing style.
Wonderful. She has talked about the colors, she has talked about the dance styles, and she has concluded that this could be what? The Maasai. It is okay. Another person to try it.
From the group which is singing, it is the most community from Baringo, right from the dressing and then the response of the song. Thank you.
The response of the song, the dressing, and he thinks they are from Baringo. Thank you very much. I would like to play a second video. Again, I would like somebody to tell us where this music here comes from. I know you have leaked the exam, which is okay. But let us watch the music. Thank you. Thank you. So, I changed the question. You leaked the exam. I want to ask the question. Are these people here performing a folk song or a folk dance?
Folk song.
Are they performing a folk song or a folk dance?
There are, according to me, I see a folk dance. Because I can see they are having some formations within what they are doing, and that more makes it a folk dance than a folk song. Because in a folk song, in most of the communities, we maintain the semicircular. Thank you.
Okay, they maintain the same semicircular. That is why he thinks it is what? Another person, the second one and the last one? Okay, there is no other attempt. It is okay. And lastly, thank you. Somebody to tell us, where does this music come from? Yes, right here, close to me.
Hello, it's from the coastal community, Mijikenda.
Oh, who is speaking? Oh, there's somebody behind there. Okay, it is from the coastal communities, and you think it is what? Mijikenda. Why do you think so?
Because of the costumes they are wearing.
Because of the costumes?
Yes.
All right. And again, the Mijikenda are so many. Is there any particular Mijikenda that you could think it is?
Yes.
I suspect it's Digo.
You are suspecting that it is what?
Digo.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, there are certain things that identify our music. There are certain things that help us to remember collectively why this could be a certain community and not what? And not any other. Let me play this one here and see. Okay. I'm sure you know where that one comes from. But my question is, are these people performing a folk song or a folk dance?
That's a folk walk. They are moving.
Folk walk.
Folk walk. That's a folk walk.
I can give you a second chance to watch it. Be very keen, please.
Yeah, that's a dance.
Okay, so is that a folk song or a folk dance?
That's a dance.
Microphone, please. Two people. Two people. Preferably a gent and a lady.
Thank you. Bukache is on my name, Western Region, Vihiga County. That one seems to be a folk dance from Luya community, particularly Suha bullfighting. Thank you.
Why do you think it is a dance?
It's a dance because of the costumation and the props.
Okay, there is a lady right in front here. Kuna wale wamesema ni sawa tu. Please rise up.
My name is Evelyn Nyachama from Garissa County. This is a folk dance which is done by 3 people. And I call it a folk dance because they're dancing as they move, and as they move, they're making some patterns.
Okay. I said 2 people, so if there is a third one who is standing to speak. Okay, Sawa.
Thank you.
10 seconds.
Okay, I cannot say it is a folk song or a dance, but it is a mass performance.
It is a mass performance. It is neither a folk song nor a dance. Sawa.
Muga Geoffrey from Kakamega.
Yes, Muga.
I can term that one as a folk march. Because those people are marching towards a battleground. So there's only singing the community song, the folk songs, but we cannot say it's a dance, just a marching song towards the battleground of the Isuga and the Tahoe community. Thank you.
Okay. Now, you know, Dr. Belinda's hand is up, and she's my mama boy, so I can't. Dr. Please say something.
Thank you, Papa Boy. That is a processional dance. One of the dance styles that we can pick on and perhaps bring on stage. And it shows that in a community, the dance styles that you normally put on stage are useful and functional. That was a procession to a particular space. It's a processional dance.
Okay. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. We are looking at performance in our African societies, and they come with diverse ideas. We can try to define them. We can try to give value to them. Let me move to the next level. I would like to also bring in the question of authenticity in my presentation. And I ask the question, what is authenticity? And I'm sure somebody will tell me that authenticity is originality. Putting it in its original what? Form. But allow me just to draw some inspiration from 2 scholars who think that, you know, cultural performance are restored behavior. If today I tell somebody to play for us that sukuti that they were playing here, they will play it because it was played, they observed it, and now they are bringing it back, which means they are restoring it. It is repeated behavior, but it can also be recontextualized behavior, which means you can abstract something from where it exists into a new environment and perform it, and it can account to what? To authenticity, which means it dispels the question of what? Untouched originality. When you say original, it means nothing has actually been tampered with. It is as good as the original. But we also want to think about authenticity in terms of what? Constructed authenticity. Authenticity that comes as a result of what? Negotiation of identity rather than a return to the purity. We have just observed those people whom we were told they were actually marching into a certain arena, performing that. If today we decided to perform that particular music right here on stage, shall we perform it exactly the way it was rendered when we saw it on the video, or something will be altered? That alteration that will allow us to represent the music here on stage is what we are calling what? A form of a negotiation of identity, so that it fits into what? Into our context. And that way, we can talk about different types of authenticities that can appear in a piece of what? Performance. We can talk about issues that are historical. Where historical authenticity, we are looking at, are we being faithful to the original? For example, the playing style of an instrument. If you are playing an Ohangla set, are you able to reproduce it the way it was being reproduced? Then we'll think about that as a what? A form of a historical. But we can also think about the community values. Are we being able to adhere to the community values? If I can give you an example. Some of the South African communities are really fond of doing what? Bringing their leg up. Whether it is women or what? Or men. And it doesn't matter the kind of costume they are wearing. But those are their community what? Values. Today, if I asked a very honorable lady in this house here to come and perform and throw her leg up, will they do it? Because our community values are what? Are different. So that adherence to the community values is a form of what we call what? Cultural authenticity. Then we look at what we call performance authenticity as a form of doing what? Embodying what? The cultural meaning. Are we able to get meaning out of whatever is being presented? Is it convincing to us? Then we can also call it what? A form of cultural authenticity. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me at this point in time to invite my good friend, an all-rounded musician, Mr. Calvin Adwa. If somebody can give you a mic, I would like you to do for me something. Please. And stand so that these people here can see you. Please observe him keenly. I would like you to understand what he is going to do. Mr. Adwa. And as he does that, men from Bungoma, please assemble somewhere. And Abantobaito, we can also assemble somewhere. Thank you.
Joey! He can't live out of Tadalano.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adwa.
Joey!
So, just Mr. Adwa, before you hand over the mic, I know people are saying Joey. Just tell us 10 seconds. What did you do?
I wailed. I appeased the spirits, but within it you realize I said something ironic at the beginning. May I not find that anyone has died in that home, yet I am grieving this departed. At the same time, I've looked at the essence of the cry, the association, the attachment I have with the norm of the placenta that was buried in that particular village that is defining the future of the community.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a form of performance in our African traditions. We have instances where a single person can perform. They can talk to us. They can narrate. They can be poetic. They can sing. They can chant. And I heard somebody, whenever he was doing something, somebody could say, Was somebody still doing something behind there? And another one could shout what? Joey. Whereas it is still a single person who is performing, the community will never be left out of that particular what? Performance. True or true? Ladies and gentlemen, can I ask men from Bungoma to do a word? Men from Bungoma, where are you? They are somewhere. Start whatever you can start. Another different type of performance in our African context. Thank you very much, gentlemen and ladies, wherever you are. Ladies and gentlemen, these people here came in a form of procession. There was still movement in whatever they were doing. They were singing. And when they came, there was silence. And that silence ushered in what? An ululation. That ululation ushered in a different type of what? Performance. That was now song accompanied with what? Dance. That is another type of what? Performance in our African societies. And lastly, may I have Abantu Baito to do for us something? And when you finish, please don't go away. Good. To answer us. Please back it up for happen. I have some questions. Clap for them. Ladies and gentlemen, that is another type of performance that we have in our African traditions. If you watched and listened to them keenly, there was somebody who was playing an instrument. He had a long time of talking and singing on the instrument. What were the other human beings doing? They were dancing. Now, if I did something different to this performance right here, I asked the obokano player to play the obokano, and these people here don't dance. Wait until he will tell you to sing, then you sing without dancing. Go ahead, just try it. I want them to try something else. Play the obokano. They will not dance. Don't dance. Why are you dancing? Ladies and gentlemen, do you understand my dilemma? The moment the music is sounded, there is something that somebody wants to do what? To do. Okay, now tell them to do something now. Allow them to do something. And you can see they are now behaving. Stop there. Now let us do something else. Stop the obokano. Don't do anything. You guys now dance. 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 Thank you so much, Abantu Baito. Wapigie makofi tafadhali. What am I trying to demonstrate? Ladies and gentlemen, we sing something and we dance to something. That song is what is giving us the impetus to get into what? Into the dance. And that instrument is what is giving us the impetus to get into what? Into the dance. And when we dance, the song comes out more naturally. When we tell them now don't dance and now just sing, they start looking at me like, no, wait a minute, what is the problem? You are disturbing us. Allow us to behave what? Normally. What am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that our African performing arts are manifested as a composite. They are intertwined. They work hand in hand together. None can go without the other. None can go on its own. They must be combined. Even when Calvin Adwar was performing here, he did not just stand. He was doing something, walking around, talking to us using his hands, using his face, using his head, and at times beckoning us to do something. It is what? A composite. If you look at it, Calvin explained to us that this particular performance is done in a particular time. That is what we call what? The context. And if you look at my conceptual framework here, that kind of a cone or a funnel is what I'm calling the context. Why did the Bukusu men come marching? They were not dancing. It is because that particular context is a reflective context for them to be talking to an initiate. When they get here, after the ululation, why do they break into the dance? Because the context now is informing them that this is now a man. Let us do what? Let us celebrate. So the context is important in telling us the manner in which we are supposed to do what? To express ourselves musically or otherwise. And that is why the song and the dance and the instrumentation, they work hand in hand. Whether they are exchanging positions or they are working together within that particular context to produce what we call what? The musical arts performance. If you look at this particular one, it is showing us an instance of where the Bukusu men were here. They could sing at the same time doing what? Dancing. None of them was superseding the other. They were well intertwined. But if you move to the next one, you'll find that when they were coming in, the song had more prominence than what? Than the dance. It was basically what? A march. But when you look at what happened in the next performance here, the dance had a bigger proportion than what? Than the song and the instrumentation. But at the end of the day, there is something that still occurs in whatever profile it is. They are intertwined. And whatever you are seeing here as the song, instrument, and the dance, what we have here as the nucleus is what we can easily refer to as what? The total music factor. So what is accounting for the total music factor? The larger part of the dance combined with the rest, all of them in proportional levels, or the song part in whatever it is. But the moment you remove one of them, then that total music factor is obviously what? Affected. Ladies and gentlemen, the term folk song is something that I have not used much in my presentation. Allow me to just go a little historical so that I break down where exactly we got this aspect of what? Of the folk song. And if we go into our books, we find that Africans started participating in the Kenya Music Festival around 1950, there 51, 52, or the late 40s. We don't have the exact dates. But whatever it is, they came into the festival first of all to sing the Western song. But it was also important for them to feel African, and that's why they also introduced what? An African song. Why are they introducing an African song? Because this is an establishment that is already what? That is already British, that is foreign to us. So what did they come with? They came with a musical culture that is known to them, where song is different from instrument, is different from dance. And that is why they brought in the aspect of what? Song. How did the song look like in the beginning? They were told, because your songs are very short, like Dr. Belinda demonstrated Mwana Wambeli, sing that Mwana Wambeli, sing a second song, then go back to Mwana Wambeli and you finish, and that is what? Your song. Those of us who are composers, like Shuja Sylvester will say, hey, is he talking about a certain form and structure in the Western what? Style. But as that moved on, they realized that you could introduce an instrument into that song. So they said, please bring in maybe a drum or a rattle so that you do what? You accompany that song. And it was supposed to be what? Basic. Two, they also said, introduce some movement so that you also do what? Accompany it. And that movement was supposed to be what? Quite basic. Mr. Adwar was reminding me yesterday, for those of us who are there that time, you can remember Sisi wana wa Nyayo
tunaingia.
Sisi wana wa Nyayo tunaingia. Nyayo, Nyayo tunaingia. Whether you went to Eastern Kenya, Western Kenya, Central Kenya, all of us were dancing what? Nyayo, Nyayo tunaingia. It was supposed to be what? A basic movement. But then, according to the records that we find, one of the days, somebody from Nyanza just came in with a fiddle, and the following year he came in with a nyatiti. And these people realized that other instruments could easily be what? Incorporated into the performance. And they also introduced other dance styles. So it is the Kenyans actually themselves who kept doing what? Developing the song until it became what? It became what it is right now. But a very important year in the development of Kenya Music Festival is 1968, when the leadership of now Kenya Music Festival was handed over from now the British people into what? Into the African people. And that's how they started doing what? Developing more ideas into what? The folk song. I'll not get into the history of Graham Hislop, but he's one of the greatest contributors into formulating what today we call as what? The folk song in the Kenya Music Festival and the folk dance in the Kenya Music Festival. But looking at this, what is now the folk song that we have right now in the Kenya Music Festival? This is a song that draws raw material from our traditional what? Societies. But we draw those materials, then we repackage them. How do we repackage them? If I remember very well, when we used to go to play soccer, we would move, like, let's say, from Nakuru here to Gilgil on foot. And what would accompany us from Nakuru to Gilgil? Hamba Mutaria. Just that song only. Hamba Mutaria. And somebody's busy talking. Hamba Mutaria. Pole pole like that. And he develops the same song from there up to what? Up to the end. That is how our African music is developed. But when we bring it onto the stage, what do? Hamba Mutaria. Alafu, ha, howe, hamba Mutaria. Immediately, tindo, tindo, ho, bana wefe munyai. Then immediately after, merina fula, ha, ha. Have you repackaged the kind of ideas that you have to bring on stage? We are mixing now several songs for our creative process to be complete. But if you go back into the village, or one person again, and he will talk, and she will talk, and the song continues until the whole ceremony is over. So folk song now becomes an identity of the Kenya Music Festival. It becomes what? An identity of the Kenya Music Festival. It is something that has been developed via three main mediums. One, it is cultural. We looked at the performances here. We saw some of the songs that take a bigger portion as the dancing is less. We saw more dancing than what? Than song. That is cultural. But it's also historical, like I have narrated, where the folk song came from. But it is also institutional. The Kenya Music Festival is a negotiated music space that allows us to do what? To come up with novel ideas. Not to reproduce that which exists elsewhere, but to repackage it so that it fits what? Our context. And that is why, in the traditional setting, you will see how the composite works together. But you come into the Kenya Music Festival, the song is separated from the dance and the instrument, but those two, or the arrows on the side, show that they are still what? Interrelated. They work with each other, either alternately or whatever way it is for them to do it, to bring out correct meaning. What are some of the key characteristics now of a folk song, which is now our identity as Kenya Music Festival, which is our culture? That it is transmitted orally. It is communally authored. By communal authorship, what do I mean? If I sing a song, Mwana Wamberi, right now, in a wedding, I will have my own words. If tomorrow there is a graduation and he takes up the same song, Mwana wa Mbele, he will have his own words. He is building onto the authorship of what? Of that Mwana wa Mbele. That's why we call it is what? Communal. It doesn't mean that it is not one person who did what? Came up with that song. It is function-based, and we want to look at the melodic and the lyrical centrality as what characterizes that particular what? That particular folk song. Flexibility in structure. It doesn't have a particular, structure that one must follow, that you must start here and end here. It depends on the kind of song that it is. Like in my community, there is a song where the leader can sing for the next 1 minute before you respond. They'll say, that is a form of a structure. But there is another structure where somebody will just say, Hamba Mutalia, Hamba Mutalia. The structures are quite flexible. All right? But we are looking at the voice, the text, the melody, and the narrative as what characterizes what a folk song entails. All right? If I taught my students a song, Dumbu, Dumbu yo mwana wefwe, hey ahomera, Dumbu, 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 Dumbu yo mwana, and they repeat that 3 times, then they move from there, they go to Wariwewa, hey ngombe. They sing that 3 times and then they go to Gonanga Nimbara. What is happening? The text is not developing. The voice is not developing, it is at the same level. The melody is not developing, it is at the same level. The narrative is not developing. Yet we expect that the narrative has to be in that song. They don't just say, Dumbu, Dumbu, and they leave it. Dumbu, Dumbu, ya Otieno, efwe. I've already brought in the name of Otieno, I have developed it. Contextual meaning. Are we able to get the meaning of the context of that particular song? When it comes to the dances, we are looking at what? A movement-based tradition. Whereas the other one was based on the song, we are looking now on the movement-based. How do we transmit a dance? We transmit a dance via what? Kinesthetic transmission, using the movement itself to transmit. Mr. Muga, please come here. I would like you to demonstrate something. Kimbia kidogo bana, you are late enough. Okay, Mr. Muga, please dance for us Lipala. Lipala. All right? Lipala, ha, bene Lipala. Lipala, bene Lipala. Stop there. Now, Mr. Muga, can you now perform something that is different, that is related to Lipala, but it is not Lipala? Sevule ho 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 ho, sevule ho 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 to me. Do you see his movement? The Lipala, the legs were going where? Behind. Now when he comes to this one, they go where? But it is still the same community. How does he differentiate those movements between the 2 styles? It is because of what? Because of the embedded movement relationship. It is because of what? The kinesthetic transmission. It's because it is what? Movement-based. It is the movement that makes him to understand it. And that is what needs to come out of what? Of a dance. Thank you, Mr. Moga. Now, if you take a comparative analysis of what? Of the folk song and folk dance, these are the things that should come out. One, in terms of the medium. What medium do we look for in a folk song? And what do we look for in a dance? In terms of transmission, where is a folk song and where is the dance? Flexibility, the community, but importantly, the authenticity marker. Is it what? The linguistic content or what? The movement vocabulary. And we are looking at the embodiment of memory. It should be more into what? The linguistic and the poetic aspects as opposed to what? The spatial tradition and the muscle. If my technician was here, I would have demonstrated something more. Ladies and gentlemen, I want us just to see a bit of, a performance that maybe reflects something that I have just talked about in this as we come towards the end of our presentation. We want to look at exactly when you are told now to perform a folk dance or a folk song, what are some of the things that stand out to make this as a good folk song or a bad folk song or a dance, and what steers it off from it not being. Please look at the instrumentalists. What are they doing? Look at the leader of the group. What are they doing? Look at the rest of them. What are they doing? Look at the costuming. How does it look like? How much is it contributing to this particular performance? Okay. If you are thinking of this particular performance, you will see there is a set of who? The instrumentalists. There is a set of who? The dancers. There is a leader of that particular dance. These people have got, first of all, color codes that are totally different. The leader differs from the rest. The dancers have got 2 or 3 chords that are different. Then the instrumentalists have got what? Chords. We are looking at what we call what? Role allocation. You want this person to be the leader. How do we identify their role? First of all, from the visual aspect of who they are, such that when they make their action on stage, it comes out clearly. You have got your dancers. Do they have any particular roles, or it is just them dancing everything together? You have assigned them specific roles. How easily can we identify with those particular roles? It is via what? Our visual aspects. You have got what? Your instrumentalists. They have got a different what? Color that they are using to identify what? Their role. But let us look at the movements. Let us look at the movements. The instrumentalists, are they just on one side playing, or are they contributing to the choreography of the dance? Hello? They are playing the instruments, and when those ones do the turn, they also do what? They do the turn as they continue doing what? Playing the instruments. When this dance here was starting, the instrumentalists were right in the middle of what? Of the stage, as they come from the other side. They are already making a formation onto the stage. When they get onto the stage, the instrumentalists don't just move and stand on the side. They move with the dance movement that they have, and they get into what? Their position. When they move on the side, the instrumentalists always follow them to do what? To be a part of a contribution of that particular choreography. So what are we looking at? It is not just a matter of having groups on stage placed, but they don't have any particular role that they are doing what? They are playing. I was very keen on the kinds of formations. The kinds of formations that were brought on this particular stage. How do those particular formations reflect the cultural aspects of this particular community? They arrive on stage, and there is something that is particular from this community that is, to the next slide, that is brought onto the stage. My time is up. Now I have to move faster so that I conclude the presentation. Thank you. So what are some of the issues that I have identified in our presentations that impede our ability to bring out a folk song or a folk dance? That voice as a core medium is usually underexplored. There is lack of poetic endowment, and there is lack of what? Dynamism. In terms of choice of a dance, the material that we choose for our dances is the exact same material that we choose for our what? For our folk songs. So you have the folk song, perform it, all the dance styles that you had for the folk song, bring them into the dance and only make what? X, Y, and Z as formations, and you call it what? You call it a dance. The roles that undermine the dance as what? The essence of what? Of the movement vocabulary is what? Is lacking. So ladies and gentlemen, looking at my presentation, I have demonstrated the issue of what? The issue of, originality or authenticity in many different ways. But I want to just say something small as I conclude. Social change as an important aspect into what we call folk song or folk dance in our festival. Social change takes 4 stages. There is the invention, there is the accumulation, there is the adjustment, and what? The diffusion. Yes, somebody like Graham Hislop might have contributed so much into the establishment of what we call folk song and folk dance into what? Into our establishment. But imagine, more than 75 years ago, the same thing has been happening. What did we do? He invented it. There was a process of accumulation where people brought in different ideas. There has been adjustment and transformation over the years. And now it has become our identity as who? As Kenya Music Festival. In this case, it actually responds to the authenticities that I talked about, and it also responds to also the theories that I have fronted in this particular presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry I have hurried towards the end, but I hope that my presentation has helped us to differentiate between these 2 important aspects. Asanteni sana.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, this morning is powerful in terms of content delivery. I'm so impressed. I'm so well guided in this field. I hope we have learned quite a lot, because throughout Dr. Mukasa's presentation, he has exhibited or reflected cultural competence, ethnomusicological rigor, comparative insight, engagement techniques, adaptability when mulipoiba mutiani, was able to adjust and bring another question altogether, and passion for presentation. No time for question and answer. Please just write down, and Dr. is with us. He will be able to interact with you. Makofi ya kilo kwa Dr. Mukasa wa kunashukuma huyu anapoondoka. Thank you, brother. Good one.
Some announcement. There are some forms that are going around for signing. By show of hand, nani haja sign? Kuna zenye zinatembea mgumu tu. How many have signed? Majority. If you haven't signed, make sure that you do. Na kama imekufikia, please don't stay with the paper, sign and pass it on. Daily attendance, you sign daily at the desk out there. Those from the tertiary institutions, usisign kwa ile ya tertiary, then you go back and sign in the regions again. Just stick to what you did on the first day. Make sure you sign daily. When you are sign, the forms will be coming around. When you are sign, please make sure they come to us. There's something here. GA, could just make that announcement, please? Okay, I'm told it's the QR code with the registration clerk. I think this can make your work easier. You can be able to scan it. Kama huwezi, you will be assisted. In fact, you kipewa mahali ulipo, it could assist you usipo. As we go out, make sure you can scan from the registration desk. May I invite Bwana Fred Shitubi to be able to usher in the next presenter.
Hello, and we are going international a bit. And for the next 30 minutes or so, we will be taken through the topic, assessment for learning. Allow me to introduce a prominent figure in our festival for the last 3 years, Dr. Marshall Hanning, who is an acting Associate Dean of Academic and Student Affairs in the College of the Arts at the University of Florida, where he also serves as Associate Professor of Music Education. Dr. Hanning is on demand globally as a guest lecturer, a conductor, and a presenter in music education. He has served in these capacities in 6 continents and is a frequent presenter at international music education events, including Kenya Music Festival, where he has featured for at least 3 years. Can we appreciate Daktari? Clap for him as he takes the podium to come and share with us on the area of assessment for learning. Welcome, Daktari.
Thank you very much. Hamjambo. It's good to see you this morning. I'm very pleased to be able to speak to you a little bit about the process of assessment for learning and how we can contribute to the long-term success of our students through their participation in the festival. As we've said, this is my 3rd year attending the festival, and it is truly remarkable. It is something like I've never seen before. I've never experienced anything on the scope, on the scale, or with the impact of the Kenya Music Festival. It is truly exceptional. And one of the things that I find most fascinating about it is that in the end, it's an educational event. And that's something that's very exciting for me. There are music performance events all over the world, but to have something on this scale that is focused on education and on students and teachers is truly unique. And I want to make sure that we're contributing to the growth of those students through everything that we do at the festival. And so that's what I'm going to talk about a little bit this morning. I want to begin with a little bit of context from the United States. In the United States, almost all music education, especially at the secondary level, so from junior school on up, is focused on large ensemble performance. So even within the school day, we don't have a lot of music study that would be focused on individual student performance or focused on music technology, focused on music composition, these kinds of things. You see those in some places, but it's fairly rare. Almost all of what we do in music education in the United States is focused on large ensembles. So we have bands, we have choirs, and we have orchestras. And those are very much focused on, again, the performance structure. So they lead toward those ensemble performances as a focus at the end of the experience. And I don't want to take away from the value of ensemble performance. There are a lot of benefits in performing in large ensembles and performing in front of audiences. Students learn to work together, as we've talked about already at the workshop here. They learn to demonstrate dedication and hard work. They learn to focus on the outcome and to refine their work to create a truly excellent performance. All of these things are valuable, and the students can take away many things from the performances that they have an opportunity to participate in. But when we focus very strongly on performance, there are also some drawbacks and challenges. In the United States, one of these challenges is that the quality of music programs, the quality of music teaching, is largely judged on the quality of the performance. And the people who are doing the judging are often the audience members, who are parents, community members, perhaps institutional administrators, and many of them don't have a lot of musical training. So the quality of the music teaching that is taking place is being judged based on a very narrow portion of music making and being judged based on the experiences and the interpretations of many people who may not have a lot of musical training to draw upon. And even if they do have musical training, even if we assume that they understand how to properly evaluate the performance and to take away what students are learning from the performance, it's only a very narrow portion of musical skills that are represented in that narrow time. We don't get to see what the students understand about the music. We don't get to see if they can make their own music. We don't get to see how they can engage with music in different ways. We only get to see the particular components of musical participation that are demonstrated in that ensemble performance. And because of that, our music programs tend to bias toward the performance itself. And so we lose our focus on student learning. We lose our focus on student understanding. We lose our focus on student growth beyond the moment. And we end with a focus on what students can do for now and in front of us at this time, instead of a focus on what they can do for a lifetime and what they can take away to continue to be musical after they leave our experiences. And so the question that I ask often in the United States is, what are we building toward in the future? What will happen once students leave our classrooms? Once they leave the festival? Once their participation in this particular experience is ended? What will they take away? In many cases in the US, we have a situation where students are only able to do something musical within the context of the classroom. They need 30 other people and a trained professional in front of them to allow them to make music. They're only able to participate in those musical experiences when someone else is there to help them. And so the question that I ask is, what will happen when no one is there to help them? How will they continue to make music when they have left our classrooms, when they have left the festival, when their teachers are no longer in front of them to make all the decisions? How will they continue to participate? And these are questions that we're struggling with in the US in many cases right now. I watched the chairman's presentation on ethics and adjudication on Tuesday. I wasn't able to quite be here yet. I was delayed in my flight, but I was able to stream because we have the technology, which is wonderful. And he talked a lot about adjudicators who focus on the results of the performance. They might take money to adjust the results. They might release the results in advance. They might have conversations with other people about the results. But you notice that all of those challenges that we have with ethics and adjudication, many of the things that we've been speaking about all week, about acting properly and doing things properly, arise from the fact that we are focused specifically on the results and not on the learning, not on the experiences of the students. Because if we're focused on the experiences of the students and whether our students have learned, there's no motivation to take money for the results, because the results are not the point. The results are not the end goal. He asked in that presentation, he said, is it part of learning to leave students out in the cold? And I would ask you, is it a part of learning to train students to do something with no understanding and no ability to do it on their own? Can we call that a part of learning for our students? For me, I'm not sure of the answer. So if you take a look at the phrase on the screen right now, this is a phrase in French. Will you say, plus ça change? Plus ça change. Yeah, so the C in the second word there is going to be like an S sound. And we need a little E at the end of the word change. Plus ça change. Better. We say plus c'est la même chose. So when you say plus, will you put the corners of your mouth in just a little bit so that you say plus? Plus. Ah, plus ça change. Plus c'est la même chose. Excellent. You have now learned French, have you not? Yes, you've learned French. So you can say you speak French now. Donc, si je parle français comme ça, tu comprends très bien. Hein? Parce que vous avez appris le français. Hein? Vous avez appris juste un nom. Oui. Oui. Everyone who is looking at me confused right now, if you said you have learned French, you were lying to me. What we've done is we've given you an opportunity to do one small thing, which is not for me learning. Consider if you have ever taken a math class. And at the beginning of the math class, what I do is I give you the paper for the test with all of the answers. And I ask you to memorize all of the answers, and I stand next to you to point at the answers and have you repeat them over and over again until you've learned those answers on that page. And then I say, I've taught you math. Would you agree with me? No. But we do this in music all the time. We stand next to our students, we explain the answers to one particular thing over and over again to them, and then when they can repeat that one thing, we say we've taught them music. And I would question whether that's truly the case. In the US, we're trying to move away from the word training in regard to educational situations. Training is a word that we're trying to eliminate or to move away from, and the reason for that is because someone who has been trained is only able to do what they've trained to do. We train animals. We train AI models. But when we're creating people, we want to teach them. Someone who's been taught is able to take their knowledge and to use it in different contexts, in different situations. That is the meaning of teaching for me as opposed to training. And so one of the things that I would encourage you to think about, I know that in Kenya you make a difference between teachers who work in the schools and the trainers who work with the choirs or work with the ensembles outside. But even if you are a trainer, I would encourage you to think that you are actually a teacher. We are not here to train our students. We're here to teach them so that they can take their knowledge and use it in the future, to continue to be musical, to continue to find new situations and new contexts where they can use what they've learned and find new ways to make music as they move forward. When you look at the KMF motto says, we are enhancing the creative economy through knowledge, skills, and artistic production. And I would argue that if we're going to continue to build a creative economy, not only in Kenya, but around the world, one of the most important things is that last part, artistic production. In order to have an economy, we have to have something that we're producing. We have to have something that we're creating. We have to have something that we're adding to the world. And my question is, if we're training our students, are we helping them to produce, or are we simply helping them to reproduce? Because reproducing, in my opinion, is not going to move forward the creative economy in the way that we want to continue to do it. Now, it's natural when we give you a set of criteria, when we give you an outcome, when we say, this is the thing that we want you to do and here's how we're going to measure it, it's very natural that we try to maximize our ability to get to that measurement. In the US right now, they call this maxing. Do you have this word over here? Maxing. We're doing maxing, fitness maxing, and influencing maxing, and all of these kinds of things. And that's perfectly natural. When we say this is what is measured, then we're going to focus on the thing that is measured. But that helps us to lose our focus on everything else. And in addition, the things that we can measure are not always the things that are most important. The things that we can see immediately in the moment are not always the things that are most important. And if we focus only on those, then we end up with a very narrow focus of what we're teaching our students, or rather, training our students, because we're focused only on particular results. For me, it comes down to a question of what is the main goal and what is a side effect. What is a main goal and what is a side effect? And I encourage you to ask yourself this question about your own interactions with your students. When performance and adjudication in a particular setting becomes the main goal, then learning becomes a side effect. We focus on only preparing for the performance, and if the students are learning, that's happening on the side just because. But when we do things in the correct way for me, when we make student learning the main focus, then the excellent performance becomes a side effect. It doesn't go away. When we focus on student learning and we emphasize that our students can understand what they're doing in a deep way, we're not going to lose excellent performance, because excellent performance is going to be a result of student learning. When students understand how to be musical people, that excellent performance will follow behind. I ask you, is it easier to have an excellent performance if I chose a number of people from this room who are musically experienced and understand what they're doing musically? Or is it easier to get an excellent performance if I go out on the street and pick 20 people who have no idea what music is? Which would be easier? Here, when you start with people who understand, getting to an excellent performance is easier to do. And so if we help our students understand, the excellent performance will follow after that. But the question again is, which one is the goal and which one is the side effect? And I would argue that learning needs to be the goal. Part of the reason for that is because if we only focus on the festival results, if we train instead of teaching, what happens is that our students often take away good memories and a good experience, but very little else. They don't have anything that they can use in the future. Now, good memories are valuable, don't get me wrong. I have a lot of good memories of making music when I was in school. But until I got to university, because of the way my school music program was organized in the US, I didn't learn very much about music. I learned how to reproduce. I learned how to do one thing that I didn't even understand. I needed someone to tell me how to do it. But I had a good experience. If we want our students to go beyond good experiences, then we have to teach something that goes beyond those good experiences. If all we have are good experiences, if that's the thing that our students are taking away, then we end up becoming devalued. Because good experiences are things that our students can have in a variety of different places. Music is not necessary to have a good experience. There are many things that music can do that nothing else can do, but we have to focus on those. One of my favorite quotes from one of my favorite authors in the US in terms of music education philosophy, he says this. He says, some at least of our marginal status, and by our, he means music education, our marginal status might fall on us as music teachers, in having offered a limited array of gifts, and many of those gifts reflecting our own rather than the recipient's desires. In other words, the things that we're doing in music education, at least in the US, according to Dr. Reamer, reflect what we want to do as music teachers and not what our students want to learn, or what would be most valuable for them to take away. You saw the presentation yesterday where you had the teacher who said, I'm going to Bungoma, I don't care if you're going, I'm going. When we put ourselves first, we automatically put our students second. But when we put our students second, when we devalue the learning that's happening for our students, we take away the value of what we're doing in the first place. And so if we devalue ourselves, it becomes easier and easier for music to lose its place in the curriculum and to become less of a focus in education overall. And I don't want to see that. So we have to find a balance. We have to reward excellence. I don't want to take away from that. We want to reward excellence. But we have to continue to focus on what's really valuable, on that student learning, and making sure that our students are taking things away that they can continue to use after they leave us. Now, one challenge to this is a resistance to change, and this is something we experience everywhere. We become comfortable with what we do. We become comfortable with how we've done things in the past. And especially for people in this room, many of whom have come up participating in the festival as children, you all are very comfortable with what the festival has been up to this point and the approach to the festival that you've seen up to this point. If you weren't comfortable, you wouldn't keep doing it. You all know many people who participated in the festival as children and have chosen to not continue to participate as adults. Those are the people who were not comfortable with the current system, or at least not as happy as you were. So when you're happy with the system, it becomes a little difficult to try to move away from the things that we've always done. But the question that I would ask you is, as you're thinking about whether or not we want to make an adjustment, I would ask you to think about whether what you're doing right now is in alignment with your values, or is it just in alignment with your memories? Is what you're doing right now truly reflective of what you want to see happen for your students, or is it reflective of what you remember happening for you? I always try to ask myself, I see a lot of people when I say, what if we do it this way? What if we try something new? And they say, well, why should we do that? And one of the things I've tried very hard for myself over the last several years is to begin by asking, why not? What's the reason not to do something? And if there's not a good reason to not do it, maybe we can try and see. So, as we start to think about student learning, how do we emphasize student learning as a part of the festival? I would suggest that we need to start by thinking about when student learning takes place. And for me, student learning happens when the students are making the decisions and exercising their own judgment. Something someone said to me a long time ago that changed the way that I teach is, the person who is making the decisions is doing the learning. The person who's making the decisions is doing the learning. Again, I go back to, if you think about a different subject, if you think about math, and we're trying to teach students how to solve a problem, and I say, okay, here's the problem, how would you solve it? No, don't talk, I'm going to tell you how, no, do this. No, this way. The student is not getting a chance to learn. We have to give them the opportunity to make the decision. Or if I say, what's the answer to this? It's 42. Before they have a chance to come to their own answer, they're not learning anymore. I am. I'm the one making the decisions. And so we need to make sure that our students have an opportunity to make their own decisions and exercise their own judgment. Learning happens when students are transferring to new contexts, when they're moving forward and taking their ideas into new situations. If we ask students to learn to read, we don't ask them to read the same thing over and over and over and over again. We ask them to read something new. We ask them to transfer to a new situation to prove that they have taken something away from what they've learned. And learning is happening when students are building connections and when they're building deep understanding. Not just this particular context, but how does it fit with everything else? How does it connect to the other things that we know? So I encourage you to think about assessment and measurement of student learning as we have here at the festival. Adjudication is a form of assessment. We can think about assessment in two different ways. We can think about assessment of learning, which is where we separate assessment from the learning process. The learning happens and then we assess. Or we can think about assessment for learning, so that the assessment becomes a part of the learning process and contributes to what our students are taking away. And I think that's a more successful way to help our students continue to grow and continue to experience music after they leave the festival. So a few suggestions for you as I near the end of my presentation here. For trainers, or as I would rather you consider yourselves, teachers in the room, as you are teaching your students, teach for understanding instead of compliance. Focus on helping your students really internalize what they're taking away instead of simply doing what they're told. Some ways that you can do that: build foundational skills first. This takes a little more time to help students build a skill rather than just jumping right into the music and training the individual piece of music. But if you teach them what a dynamic is, if you teach them how to interpret the music, if you teach them good tone, if you teach them all of these foundational skills, it takes a little time at the beginning. But as we've said before, you're building musically experienced students at that point, and that makes it much easier then when we do begin the repertoire, when we do begin preparing for the festival, they're going to move much faster. So we give them a little time at the beginning in order to move faster later, but also to give them things that they can take away with them. Build structures and scaffolding to help your students grow. Don't just give them the final idea at the beginning and then train until they get that top thing. Help them grow from the bottom so that they understand, so that they build that ideas. And finally, allow your students to make some musical decisions. Let them decide what the dynamic should be. Let them decide what the interpretation should be. Let them evaluate each other and listen to the tone and listen to the diction and listen to all of these things and make a decision. Is it good or is it not good? Why? What would make it better? When your students have an opportunity to make those decisions for themselves, that's when they continue to grow and learn. and then they can take what they've learned into other contexts and continue to make music after they leave you. And by the way, please teach them to make those decisions. They're not going to be able to do it automatically. None of you were able to do it automatically. That's why you come here to learn how. Help your students to learn how to make those decisions as well. I encourage you to help your students apply their knowledge to new situations instead of overtraining the same thing over and over and over again. Help them try new pieces of music. Help them try new warm-ups. Help them try new things so that they can transfer their knowledge. Because when they can transfer their knowledge, that's when they've truly internalized it, and they can use it for new things in the future after they leave your classroom. And make the festival a part of the learning process. Someone said to me last year when I was at the National Festival, they said, once you get to Nationals, that's it, there's nothing more. There is more. Your students don't cease to exist or cease to learn or cease to know when the National Festival ends. So we need to make the festival a part of the process so that they continue to grow instead of making it the end goal. Again, I ask you, what is the goal and what is a side effect? If the National Festival is the goal and the learning is the side effect, then the side effect ends immediately when the goal is achieved. But if learning is the main goal, then we continue to learn always. And the festival is something fun we do as we're learning. And that needs to be what we need to do, in my opinion. For adjudicators, a few suggestions for you, especially at the lower levels of competition, but even at the national level. Make sure that you're providing feedback that is educational and not merely evaluative. The feedback that you give to the groups needs to help them continue to learn, because remember, learning is the purpose. The ranking is not the purpose, the learning is the purpose. So your feedback needs to provide a way that they can continue to move forward. Make sure that your marks are focused on growth in your commentary, and one way, good way to do that is to focus on what they should do instead of what they should not do. You'll notice that when I'm giving these suggestions up here, I'm saying provide feedback that is educational. That's what you should be doing. Instead of saying, don't give evaluative feedback. Because if I just say, don't do this, what's your immediate question? Well, what should I do? If you've ever dealt with small children, you tell them what not to do. Don't kick the table. What's the next thing they do? They kick the chair. Right? If you say don't do something, you only rule out one thing. We don't know what else of the other 1,000 things that we should do. So when you give feedback, try to explain what they should do instead of what they should not do. Your rankings as adjudicators should be a result, and the ranking should not be a cause for you to give the scores. One thing that I've seen several times, and I know that the adjudication tool is still new, and we're still learning how to use it, but one of the things that I've seen several times at the adjudication tables that I've sat at is that the adjudicators arrive at the ranking first, and they give the final score first, and then they go back to give the sub-scores after. So we say, this choir gets an 89, now let me see what I can add up down here to make 89. But the problem with that is that the sub-scores become meaningless. And you imagine if you're a trainer and you get back your adjudication sheet and it says tone, 19 out of 20. Diction, 15 out of 20. So now I spend the next year focusing on diction because my diction was not good, but the tone I don't spend any time focusing on because the tone got 19, that was very good. And then I find out after a year of doing that, neither of those numbers has any meaning. That was just the adjudicator trying to make their numbers add up to 89. Right? We lose the purpose. So make sure that your scores are a result instead of the cause. Make sure that you think about how you're giving feedback that's going to be useful to the people that you're giving it to. And make sure that you are upholding those highest ethical standards. I know that there's a lot of value in the festival, and there's a lot of there are a lot of things resting on the results. And so it can be tempting sometimes to adjust things one way or the other, or to slide things one way or the other. But one reason that we should do that, not just because it's unethical in and of itself, but because remember that your responsibility is not only to the trophy, but to the growth and the learning of every student in that class. When you do not uphold your ethics, it's not just the trophy that is affected, it's the learning of all of those students and the future of Kenya that rests upon those students that is affected. So your ethics are not merely for whatever equity check is being handed out. Your responsibility is to the future of Kenya, and I encourage you to take that seriously. And finally, a couple of suggestions for KMF. I was not asked to offer suggestions for the festival, but I'm going to do so anyway. And the chairman can throw me out afterwards. One thing that I would suggest that we think about maybe, and these are just suggestions, you can think about them or not, is a shorter preparation time for the music. Remember that students learn when they transfer, when they move to a new situation. If we rehearse the same music for 6 months, they have no opportunity to transfer to a new situation. So it might be possible to release, maybe in some classes, the set pieces at a later date, so that we limit the amount of rehearsal time and students are forced to know what they're doing so they can learn quickly. That might be one possibility. We might also have, in specific classes, a last-minute opportunity. I know you do this in elocution, where the students write an elocution, write a speech on the spot, so they have to demonstrate that their ability is there. Maybe we could do that in other classes as well, where we have compositions or other things where the students are learning very quickly to demonstrate their ability to transfer, their ability to be musical on their own, instead of their ability to repeat over time. I encourage the festival to continue to emphasize student-led classes. One of my favorite classes at the festival every year is the Pub Talent Show, because I get to see what the students can do for themselves, what they can put together on their own to show their learning. And when I bring my students over from the US, I have graduate students who come from the US, and they're always amazed at the Pop Talent Show, because those students can demonstrate a musical ability and a musical independence that is truly impressive and that we often don't have in the US. So I encourage you to continue to look at classes like that where students can demonstrate their own leadership. And finally, one possibility might be to continue to think about the scoring system. As the tool becomes established, we can continue to think about how it can continue to evolve. One possibility for me as an assessment, well, one of my research specialties is in assessment, and one of the challenges I see with scoring, especially at the national level, is the range of scores is very compressed. We say because at the lower levels we have to give at least 80 marks to get to the national festival, so we can't give lower than 80 at the national, but we don't give higher than 95 because nobody is better than 95. But that means that we only have 15 marks in which to try to differentiate all of these choirs. So one possibility might be to say you had to have 80 marks at regional to make it to the national, but when we get to the national, it's a different scale. And so you could have 80 marks at regional, but only 60 at the national, and that's the same thing, because at the national our expectations are higher. And that allows us to differentiate between the groups even more, so that we can show the growth more effectively. If you've grown from one year getting a 65 to the next year getting a 75, that's really substantial, as opposed to growing from an 82 to an 83. We might also consider averaging adjudicator scores. This is something we do in the US. Instead of both adjudicators on the bench having to agree on the score, each adjudicator would give their own individual score and they would be averaged to create the overall score. And that allows for more individual attention and allows adjudicators to exercise some more judgment. Again, something to consider, and if they don't like it, they can tell me later. And the last thing, one other thing that we've seen in the US that has been helpful is maybe in certain classes, we could consider a rating system rather than a ranking system. This is something that we've done in the US. So we don't do first, second, third. We have highest marks, high marks, good marks, you know. And so if everyone in the class comes in and everyone is at a high level, everyone can have highest marks. To recognize the student learning and the student achievement, so that we say, you have done a really good job. This other choir maybe ranked a little bit higher. They were a little bit better today, but you've still done an excellent job, and we want to recognize that. So a choir goes home feeling good. We've gotten highest marks. Instead of going home feeling bad, we came in third or fourth, because the other groups were very good, right? So just some things to think about as possibilities as you go forward, all of which I hope will help to continue to focus on the main goal, which is student learning. I encourage you one more time to think about, if the main goal is learning, everything else becomes a side effect. The rankings, the results, all of these things become a side effect. And what our students take away is the ability to continue to be musical and the ability to continue to participate in music in meaningful ways throughout their entire lives. Not just at the festival, but all the way in the future. as this is an educational event on a scale, I repeat, I have never before seen anywhere in the world this kind of educational structure. It is truly impressive. And I encourage you to continue to make sure that your focus is on education and on student ability rather than simply on the performances themselves. Thank you very much for your time this morning. I appreciate your attention and your invitation. Thank you.
Let us appreciate Daktari Haning in a better way. Welcome. I want to believe all of us have been challenged, looking at the US experience, our Kenyan experience, and those doing CBC. Emphasis is on what a learner can do. And very good reflections on education, Daktari, something we are definitely going to think about. How do you like us being rated on how we can perform rather than producing grades, like in the USA? If you can perform, then you are a great teacher. If you cannot present a team here, the community thinks that you are not a great teacher. Let us appreciate Daktari. I don't know whether we can allow for one or two reactions. Maybe one. If we have at least one reaction from any one of us. Is that a hand? It's very far, right at the back. Maybe come running and meet the microphone on your way so that we save time.
I talk as I bring the microphone to the fore. Thank you very much, Dr. Marshall Haning. The spanner you've thrown into the works of literary independent adjudication, the three of us doing the average at the end, is something we should think about. Because what normally happens when we are getting that consensus, the one will have the upper hand with the academic muscle and the professional artistic experience is the one who carries the day. Much as we are three, two are limping, one is carrying the day. It's a spanner thrown into the works, let's think about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. He's called Dr. Oje. I think it was not a question, it was just a reaction.
Well, and one thing that I will say also is that when we do that, when you have each adjudicator scores, it also makes it a little bit easier to understand when we have adjudicators who are not in agreement with the consensus, you know? Because if you have a group of adjudicators who are giving the same score all the time, and then one person who's consistently giving scores that are higher or lower than their peers, that's someone that we can talk to and maybe give a little bit of training or a little bit of understanding. But right now we don't know that because we only get the joint score, you know? So understanding where everybody is coming from also allows us to continue to improve the adjudication process.
Thank you so much for those reactions. That is food for thought. I want us to appreciate Daktari all the way from Florida through 5 factorials, 5 factorials. Okay, we go, 5. Welcome again to the next presenter.
Asante sana, that was a wonderful presentation, very thought-provoking, very forward-thinking. We have come a long way. We are about to celebrate our 100 years. I think we are going in the right direction. Allow me to make 1 or 2 announcements. Someone has lost their diary, Alan Chahasi. It has his name. If you have picked anything that is lost, please tunaomba mwenyewe arudishiwe. Number 1. Number 2, we have been signing up and we are signing up until the 27th. If you haven't, please see Mr. Mwangi outside so that you can update your sign-up sheets. I would like to wish you a lovely break. Let us reconvene at 11:30. Enjoy your tea.